Hi, we're starting the demo with the first step, that is to make the ganache. Now, if you do not have a microwave, you can use a double boiler by filling any pot like this up to 1/4 with water and starting to boil it. If you're using the double boiling method like this, as I'm mentioning, you need to replace this bowl with a steel bowl, not a plastic bowl. You need to replace it with a steel bowl. However, I'm going to be using a microwave, so I'm going to microwave this for about 30 seconds in the microwave. So the cream is also heated up for 30 seconds into 3 blasts, that's 1.5 minutes, and the chocolate has been heated 30 seconds into 3 blasts, 1.5 minutes. So that's 3 minutes of heating time, and I'm just going to mix it up. So this is going to be a really simple way of making ganache. Some chefs use a whisk, some chefs use a hand blender. I prefer just using a spatula. It adds less amount of air into the ganache, so it gives me a really pasty ganache. That's what I'm trying to achieve here. So just mix this up. If you've melted the chocolate, the chance of you getting lumps are very less. But if you're still afraid, then you can just pass it through a sieve so that you have no lumps in the ganache. Just keep mixing it like that. Occasionally just scoop up everything from the sides, bring it to the center, and just keep mixing. It's as simple. This is done. It's as simple as that. We're going to let this chill. Now the next step is to make the sponge, which is the Jaconde. Now that's a classic French almond sponge, which is going to have 2 techniques to it. So I'm going to make a meringue here. This is a French meringue, uncooked meringue, but I'm going to just whisk these eggs till they get frothy. Once the eggs get frothy, I'm going to add in the sugar all at once while the eggs are whisking. So you can literally see the froth developing in the egg whites. This is the whole eggs with some vanilla essence, so that looks a little blackish, but that's quite alright. I'm just mixing up all the dry ingredients. The dry ingredients have the flour, the almond flour, and the icing sugar together. I'm going to whisk all the dry ingredients along with the eggs. Now, before that starts to mix, I'm just going to pop in the sugar there. So I'm going to make this meringue. This French meringue is going to be mixing at the same speed number 6, for about another 3 to 4 minutes. It might take longer if you're using electric egg beater. It needs to whip up to a stiff peak. So you need to make sure that it whips up to a stiff peak. It might need more time. It takes about 3 to 4 minutes in the stand mixer. Might need more time in the hand mixer. So just whisk this up by hand. Make sure that you whisk it very, very easily. A lot of chefs at this point tend to use a little bit of cake gel in case they want to get a little bit more body in the sponge. However, for this particular recipe, I want it to be as flat as possible. So I'm just kind of not overly aerating this bit. So I just want to have some amount of air in this, but I don't want to have too much of air at the same time. Just mix this very well. Make sure there are no lumps here. In this season, you tend to get a few lumps because of the humidity. So you can sift the ingredients just before you want to start the process. That'll save you the problem of having lumps in the icing sugar and the dry ingredients. That's done. Now basically, once you have 2 batters ready. One part is your stiff peak meringue and the other is in the bowl. That's the slurry. So I'm going to incorporate the stiff peak meringue into the slurry. Just going to let that go in there. Amazing. Yeah, I'm just going to use the spatula. So I'm going to use a different spatula to mix the meringue in this bowl. I'm going to use this blue color spatula here, and I'm going to use a different spatula for taking the meringue out. Now that will help in one way. So this is a simple cut and fold technique. Simply cut and fold. The ideal trick is to do the entire batter in 12 turns. So that's about 6 turns done. So the next set of meringue goes in. So you see I'm using a different spatula. The reason for the different spatula is so that I can use this bowl and the whisk attachment without washing it. So I can use it to make my next recipe, which is going to be the cooked sabayon for the buttercream. Yep, cut and fold. Just keep going. You might, if it's at some places you find there little lumps of meringue there, you can just break them down. That doesn't count as a turn. So just break them down roughly like this so that it breaks up nice and even, and then give it a few turns. So try to keep it within 12 turns. Once you've done that, you need to add in the oil next. The oil is very essential. Without the oil, this particular batter is going to be very sticky. So you need to make sure that you've added oil into this batter as well. So the oil is just next to it. Now I'm using sunflower oil. You can use canola or any other oil for that matter, but make sure you just break down the lumps before you add in the oil. That's going to just relax there for a while. I'm just going to add in the oil now. So it's basically quite simple. I mean, you can see me doing it in front of you. It's really simple. It's not very complicated. It's just that you need to get the technique right. Yep, so you see there are no more lumps there. We've added in the oil. Now we're just going to do another round of cut and fold to ensure that the oil is well incorporated into this sponge batter. The oil is very essential. A lot of chefs replace it with melted butter. I still prefer oil. It makes the batter a little bit more lighter, and you know it just gives you a little bit more runniness in the batter, easy to spread, so that I can get a really flat sponge. Just try to break down any lumps that are there, and this is done. So I'm going to start to now pan this out on a silpat like that. If you don't have a silpat, you can use a parchment. Please use a good quality baker's parchment. Don't use another cheap butter paper that you get in the stationery store. So use a nice good quality parchment, or a silpat just rocks it, man. You can use a silpat, is always best. You know, it's multiple use and you can just keep using it till it tears. It's really sensible. So you got to try to keep it within the silpat. So try to keep it within the silpat. That makes it easy for you to maneuver all around. Keep it within the silpat. Yes, just like that. Use your offset spatula to kind of spread it all around the silpat. We're doing it. So basically, once you've kept it there, ensure that you have taken off the excess from the sides of the silpat like that. Just take all the excess out. Whatever you don't need, take it out, so you can make sure it's not there, it's not wasted. I mean, there isn't any wastage in this particular recipe, because even if it is burnt, even if it is towards the side, you can still use it to make things like cake pops and stuff like that. So there's never a wastage in this particular sponge recipe, or any sponge recipe for that matter. Yep, so we've got it all cleaned out like that. Any excess, you just kind of scoop it out like this, and that's really kind of just tidy it up a little bit. So make sure it's within that yellow portion of the silpat. Yep, something like that. Yeah, perfect. And we can do the second tray as well. So this particular recipe makes 2 trays. So this is the second tray. And even if you want to spread a little bit more, if you're a little bit unsure, you can you can kind of spread it a little bit more as well. And that's about it. So those are done. So one's a little bit more, one's a little bit less. I'm going to put it to bake at 180 degrees for about 5 to 6 minutes. The next step is to do the buttercream. So for the buttercream, I am basically starting off to do the sabayon first. That's a cooked mixture of eggs and sugar. So I'm going to be keeping this water to boil. In the meantime, you can check the recipe out. So you have your butter, you have your eggs, and you have sugar and icing sugar. So in this, water has come to a boil. What I'm going to do is in the bowl which is at the back, I'm going to put the eggs and the sugar, and I'm going to start whisking it over the boiling water. So this is what you call a double boiler or a bain marie, where the steam is what is cooking the egg, so that it gets a regular temperature of heat that it is exposed to. So when you kind of whisk it over a double boiler, it gets a uniform heat, and it's a very gentle heat, so it's easy for it to heat up gradually. I mean, there's no real technique to this, just keep whisking. It's a very laborious process to make this, but it's not at all complex. I mean, it's just whisking this. You need to whisk this till it gets to about 65 degrees plus. So about 67 degrees is good enough. Anything above 65 degrees is really good enough for this particular recipe, because you want to get it out of the danger zone, and you want to cook off all the bacteria which is there in this eggs, because these are not pasteurized eggs. So you can again check with your thermometer. Keep whisking. As I mentioned, it's a laborious process. You got to keep whisking this. Using a probe thermometer is always a better idea. You can just calibrate your probe thermometer once and then just check with it. So it should give you a. So when you one more thing is, when you use a probe thermometer, make sure you switch off the heat so that there is no leftover cooking which is happening with the steam. So this is a little upside down, but it's reached 68.6. So yeah, 68.6 is good enough for us, and we're going to start to put it in this. So you see the bowl is used. I've used this bowl, so I'm going to whisk this up in the same bowl. If you have a problem with the bowl and you say, for example, you're making this at different occasions, then you need to wash the bowl, wipe it dry, and then use it. So I'm simply going to put everything in there, start the machine, and once the machine is running, it's going to whisk up till it's going to get to room temperature. So I need to whisk it till it gets to room temperature, and that brings me to the next step, which is basically to soften the butter and the icing sugar. Now this has to be done by hand, or you can do it in the machine with a paddle attachment. That depends on how many machines you have or how convenient it is for you. You can also add a touch of vanilla essence to this, so that kind of helps to negate whatever egg smell is there in the eggs. So we just kind of cream that down. Now you got to keep creaming this again and again. I mean, you can cream this for, I have just creamed this for about 10 minutes flat. So creaming this is it's quite a laborious job, as I mentioned, but it's very satisfying when you get a nice smooth buttercream. So this basically gives us, so I've added a touch of vanilla. I'm just going to mix that up. So you can see that this color has become slightly yellowish. It was very yellow, now it's become slightly light yellowish. The more you cream this, it's going to get whiter, and you want to stop when it gets really off-white. At that stage you can add in so it's, you notice it's gotten a little off-white here. At the same time, my sabayon is also cooled down considerably. So I'm creaming that, ensuring that we have everything happening at one time. So we have everything happening simultaneously. So moment the butter and the sugar is creamed and ready, I can add in the diluted coffee powder. So this coffee powder is a Nescafe Red, which I'm using, and I'm just going to add a few drops of water just to dilute this a little bit, so that if you add it in directly, it'll form little lumps and specks. If you dilute this with a little bit of water, it will kind of blend in well into the butter. So that's the benefit of using a diluted coffee. Brilliant. So just mix it up nicely and add it into your butter, the cream mixture. So you just again give it a few minutes of beating rather, so that it gets well combined, very well mixed. And it forms a uniform off-whitish, brownish, light brownish color. It's smelling really divine with a lot of coffee, good amount of bitter coffee smell. That's really amazing. So I'm going to add half of the sabayon now. Cut and fold, same technique. You can turn the bowl occasionally. Cut and fold is like the fundamental mixing method today. So cut and fold. So for us pastry chefs, it's very easy for us to get to not waste anything. Sometimes it's very difficult for people to let a lot of it lie in the bowl. But us being chefs, what happens, we try to scoop every single molecule out of the bowl. So it's just a force of habit. Mix that up. Yep, just cut and fold again. So you notice that this is getting really light in texture. It's getting really it's getting really fluffy, and that's what you want to achieve with the buttercream. So you want to get a buttercream that's really nice and fluffy, almost like an ice cream texture. That's really yummy, really light, and really loaded with coffee. So as I mentioned, I always mention this, I always keep a duster around to wipe my hands. Always keep a duster around so that it's easier for you. To do the coffee syrup, half of the recipe which we've got there, we're using half of the recipe with all of the coffee powder. So again, you can add more coffee powder if you want, or less of it if you want, or if you have an espresso machine at home, you can make 4 espresso shots and use it here as well. That gives you more coffee potency and less sweetness. So it really depends up to you. Yeah, the power of the sugar that I'm using here is a 1:3, so it's 1 part of sugar, 3 parts of water. In some cases you can use a 1:2 or a 1:4 as well. The sponge is out, and really important thing, part of the sides are burnt. So that's a very important thing to understand, that even if the sides of them are burnt, you still can get a good sponge out of it. You can still get a good cake out of it. So some people, they get very nervous when they have burnt sides. See, this is not a competition, and you're not trying to make the best opera in the world. You're trying to make a good opera. So just keep it simple. Don't get so nervous about things. Simply place one sponge over the other so that you can just cut, like it acts like a stencil of sorts. You can also use a foot scale good foot scale, so you can take a measurement of it. This is about it about evens it out, so you can record the measurements, and then you can cut accordingly. So get whatever the sides, whatever this part of it is there, collect it in a bowl. All this can be used later for making for making cake pops or putting into tarts. You can have a variety of uses. You don't have to throw any of this out. So sponge is never wasted. So even if it is burnt, don't worry, you can still moisten it with some sugar syrup or with the coffee syrup, and it will still be good enough. So this is really soft. You can see how thin this is. This is super thin, and that's what you're trying to achieve. You're trying to achieve a nice thin sponge. That's very important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a really fast technique, really simple, super simple technique. I'm just going to put coffee syrup everywhere. So just put coffee syrup everywhere, and I'm going to layer this with I'm going to layer one completely with butter, with the coffee cream, and one completely with the soft ganache. At this point, if your ganache is set, or maybe your AC was too cold and your ganache is set, microwave it a little bit so that it's soft, and you can spread it all around the sponge. And if you have little specks of the sponge which are broken, see, like you can see one of the you can see this particular sponge that I'm working on is slightly broken. Don't worry about that. That can go in the inside part of the gato, and the part that is perfect can go in the exterior. So the bottom and the top sponge can be the good one, and if there's any break in your sponge, that can go inside your gato. So that will kind of shield it or kind of hide it. So make sure this is really even. If it is not even, it is going to pose a massive problem. You will get a mountain looking cake. So try to keep it as flat as you can, really super flat. Same thing, soft ganache. Put how much you want. I mean, there's no compulsion that you need to have less or more. How much you want. You need to spread this out as well. When you spread this out, remember again, spread this out really evenly. Use your same offset spatula. Just clean the same spatula and you can just wipe it and use it. It's that simple. I mean, if you have a little bit of so don't really complicate your life saying that you need to have 4-5 spatulas and stuff like that. This is really not that difficult, but you need to have an offset spatula. To do this job, you need some amount of tools. I mean, without the basic set of tools, it's going to be very difficult to work in this particular recipe. So at least have 2 to 3 spatulas, offset spatulas at hand when you do this recipe. Yep, so that's basically, I'm cutting it and I'm placing it on top of the other. So I've layered them alternatively. That is, the one layer is with buttercream and one layer is with ganache. So I'm going to put this last. It's sticky. Yep, done. So that's going to come up there. Gently slide that out, and that sits there perfectly. So now this is not really done. We're going to just put this butter paper onto a 14 by 14 cake base. I'm putting on a cake base because it's easy for me to place this in the fridge or in the chiller or wherever. Take a measurement again. So this is about 10 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it smack at 5. So I'm cutting it at 5. I'm going to place one on top of the other using my 2 offset spatulas again. So that is going to go on top of the other one. Just clear it off the parchment. If it's a good quality parchment, it won't tear, it won't rip, nothing will happen to it. Bad quality butter paper will just tear. Place it on top of the other. Now some chefs say, I don't want it to be so high. But a lot of you will, might be fond of this height, and a lot of the people who purchase these cakes from us are fond of this height, and that's the main reason why I always tend to make it a very tall cake. That's the biggest reason for it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit more ganache, and wherever it is less or wherever it is not straight, I'm going to just add the ganache and just iron it out a little bit there. So this is going to make sure that the product is nice and even on top and on the sides, and it does not have like this mound kind of a shape. So it's not really advisable to do this particular thing. So if I was doing this in the commercial way, I would probably I'd probably do my layers and then refrigerate my layers and then put them one on top of the other. But we don't have that much of time, and we need to make sure that this is really simplified for you guys to do at home. So I'm trying to just smoothen the entire top out. Make sure there's enough of ganache on top to make a nice, like nice flat top. Take out whatever's excess. Remove all the excess out. So you notice that it's a nice squarish kind of a sponge, and the cake is going to now rest in the chiller. We're going to put it inside the chiller for approximately around in the chiller, if it's sitting in the chiller, it's going to go for an hour. In the freezer for about 15 to 20 minutes. You can even keep it in the fridge overnight. It'll set much better. Take out whatever's excess. If you don't want this the excess butter paper, just get rid of it. You can just tear it out. You don't really need it. This particular cake doesn't have this is not done as yet, so this is going to still incur some amount of wastage on the sides. So when we take it out of the fridge, we're going to layer it out and again cut it. So this has rested in the freezer for approximately 30 minutes, and now I'm going to just do the finishing of this. So when you're finishing this, apply as much ganache as is required to make sure that the top is flat. You're working with a hot knife or a hot water or your hot water dip with the knife, so that it kind of gives you this nice glossy finish. So if you notice my strokes are straight. So because of these straight strokes, you can easily tell that the top is completely flat. That's very important. You need to use just a touch of the knife, very very delicately edge this out. Now normally as chefs we would probably use melted chocolate, but as this is a simplified opera, I'm using ganache. Again, just finishing touches on the edges there, a little bit with the hot knife, and this is good to go in for cutting now. So we're going to trim off all the edges there. So trimming off the edges is very important because that's what exposes the brilliant layers of the opera. That's what exposes the opera. Now traditionally an opera is supposed to be about 1.5 inch tall, but we've had we've had like a lot of clients tell us that it's too short a cake, and we need a little bit more height in the cake. That's the reason why we double up on the opera height and make it a tall cake like this. But that's entirely up to you. So if you want to keep it short, you can keep it short as well. So that's it, finishing touches on this, and once the sides are trimmed, this is good to go on onto your cake base, and it's good to be served. Look at those layers, really yummy. If you have a little bit of sugar syrup coming out, just let it rest in the fridge for about 12 hours, and that should not happen. That's perfect. So once you've trimmed all the sides, you can place the opera on the separate new cake base like that. Just get rid of all the sides. I mean, the sides don't have to be thrown out. You can consume them. An opera is not finished unless you pipe opera on top of it. That's like an indicator that it's an opera cake, and it also shows a little bit of skill when you can pipe an opera on top of that. So yeah, a little bit of skill there. Pipe an opera so you know it's an opera, and ta-da! That's done. Looks really amazing, really simple, and look at those layers. Can you just check those layers out? Amazing. That's the simplest opera I have made in quite a while, and it's something that you can easily mimic at home. I haven't used a lot of gadgetry in this. There are a few things here, and if you don't have an oven, it's probably not going to work out for you. So yeah, if you have one of those cooker things, it's high time you get an oven. A little bit of silver leaf there, and that looks gorgeous. Amazing. When I cut this in the center, I just want to expose the layers. Just look at those layers, man. Thanks so much guys for joining us. That's the video, and this is the opera. If you ever want to follow us for more videos, we're on Facebook, Foodie Breaks India, or on Instagram as Foodie Breaks, or you can just search for me, Kunal Arolkar. Thanks so much guys.